So what was it like recording with ACDC then? Was there anything that they did that was unique?
Um, you know, what people don't realize about recording with people who are well known is that they're experienced. So it's rewarding to you to work with a caliber of person who's been experienced in the studio, but does realize every studio has got a unique sound no other has. So, for instance, be it worse or better, their experience here sounded different than it did wherever else they record.
Mm.
And I was honored to work with them in that respect because they're well respected and they're pros at what they do. But it was nice because I can focus more on what I do uh, because rest assured I knew that what they did was already wrapped up. They knew what they were doing.
Mhm.
Uh, a lot of the song creation was done right here in this room. One of the surprising things in those sessions that I actually almost forgot to mention was that when I heard I was going to be recording with Brian, who's the lead singer of ACDC, Cliff, who's the bass player, organized this little group to kind of get together to have fun. We just got together to have fun, 9 songs. And when I knew Brian was coming, of course, I wanted to do the best I could. So I acquired a microphone, a high energy mic. Brian Johnson's a screamer. He sings very loud. So I figured, let me get a microphone that's going to be appropriate because certain microphones, if you understand mics, are not appropriate because of the potential for the preamplifier that's built into the mic to distort and create an undesirable sound. So I got a high energy microphone and
Do you know what microphone that was?
yeah, I used the Shure SM7B.
Oh,
Which
wow.
is a very popular mic for screamers, rappers. Michael Jackson used it in Thriller. In my opinion, one of the best Shure microphones out there for sure.
Mhm.
But it takes a lot to drive the mic, so you got to have equipment, a cloud lifter, or a good preamp to really push it. Or a very powerful singer, and for sure Brian was. But I set the mic up in the booth, and when he came in, and I first met him, and trying to establish a nice, comfortable environment, he said, I'm not recording in there. And I said, what do you mean? He goes,
Prima donna.
no, he didn't say it like that. He said it more like, I want to record where everybody else is.
Hmm.
And I understood him because the most important thing when you have a detached environment where, let's say, for instance, you, the engineer and the producer here and the artist is in the vocal booth, is to always have that communication mic set up.
Mhm.
Because if you don't have that button pressed and they don't hear what you're talking about, it's very frustrating for them. It changes their attitude, it changes their performance ability. To include them, be it a discussion about playback, 99% of the time, it's a proactive discussion that's not talking anything bad about the performance, but it's talking about how we can improve it, how we can maybe change it to do a different approach on stacking it, let's say. They perceive it as what could it be? Why did they stop? Why are they not including me?
Mm.
So I understood him when he said that because he probably experienced that where you have big producers like Mutt Lang who produced Back in Black, talking to the rest of the band about this is what I'm looking for with the vocal, maybe not including him. I don't know that to be the case, but maybe not. And so he wanted to sing in here. So I said, well, there's a fundamental problem with that. Because as you guys experience even at your homes, you can't sing in the same room you're monitoring in. That is unless you've got a professional tool that has great rejection as well as acceptance. So yeah, right on the corner of the table to the left of me, he sang every song. And he was loud. Very, very loud. It was Brian Johnson versus Unity Gain speakers.
Wow.
And boy, he's like, bring it up. And I'm like, wow. And it was amazing. It didn't really feedback. And any other artist, I would have said, no, you out of your mind? There's no. But I respected him to the point at which he knew what he was talking about. And sure enough, it worked. It did work. So I learned it can work. It's just, you have to allow for bleed. You've got to have a good tool. You can't put a 57, 58, a cheap mic there and expect that same result without feedback. Because your speakers and your microphone, once they meet, they create a feedback loop, and usually to the point at which something breaks.
Right. Yeah.
So that was an interesting lesson I learned, an interesting approach to production. And I understood him after that because it really was productive that way. They were writing right on that table the majority of the songs, and we all had we all had a part in it, you know.
Yeah. So is there anything unique that they had, or any thing different about how they went about writing?
They
the
had
songs?
they had the luxury of writing on studio time. You know, I always encourage everybody to prepare as much as they can at home. But even at that, when you prepare stuff at home, and I notice a lot of them come in with this stuff printed out from Musically for the arrangers, and there's still a modification that occurs in the studio, because when you collaborate, those unique ideas are going to always create and spur new ideas that maybe the artist didn't think about when they first were writing it. Yeah, it was really interesting because their ears, they weren't closed-minded. We've done this before, we got this. They were up for any suggestions. You know, I would suggest something, and I only saw that as an opportunity because they asked for suggestions, you know. As an engineer, you're not a producer unless you're asked your opinion. At that point, you pretty much should let, if it's self-produced or somebody else produced, you should let that breathe. If you see a train wreck, technically, I think it's your job to mention something. But with them, they knew what was happening every step of the way. It was a matter of, this is the way they felt the unity of the collaboration. You know, if you ask an artist, how'd you write this song? There's so many diverse ways songs are written. First, they may have a melody, or they'll have words, or they'll have a groove they wrote words and a melody to. And I mean, I've been really asking people that question for years, and it's incredible how diverse the
So
response has been.
what was ACDC's approach then? Did they start with the music first, or lyrics, or melody?
What they did was they had a groove, they had a music groove, and then they had a concept on what they wanted to say within that groove, and then they wrote around it. You know, so a song we did was called Chain Gang. You know, Chain Gang on the road, and it was like, well, how do you end up on a chain gang? You know, well, you get caught doing something. So the FBI is mentioned, the CIA, So that's what's kind of is the birth of the words, is the birth of the first concept, and then the cadence the words have to sit in within a certain frame. And it's amazing to see that born, because that's not easy to do.
Right.
That's not easy, because you've got a certain group that's inspiring you for an idea, and then you take a global idea, and then you get people shooting ideas, and then somebody making a final decision. Usually it's the singer, because the singer's got to sing it.
Right.
So is it phonetically, is the Slavic count correct? Do I need to modify the words? They may say a word and he doesn't like it because it doesn't say it as clearly as he wants to say it. It's fun. That's fun in seeing that born, because without every element in place in that situation, I don't really see that ever turning out like that, unless everybody's in that unique situation, everybody's idea contributed.
Right. So that's kind of, I guess, you hear a lot of the downsides to being in a band, but that's kind of one of the positives, is you get all these different ideas.
It's working together. To me, collaboration is key. It isn't quality of musicianship. I want to say that right. It's not, he's the best guitarist, he's the best bassist, he's the best drummer, he's the best lyricist, he's the best singer. But it's the chemistry of those people. And there's so many examples of that through history. Collaboration is really, really important. And you can see when that collaborative chemistry changes, how the complexity changes. Look at the chemistry between Elton John and Bernie Taupin in the 70s, which is an incredible combination of writer-player. When you ask Bernie Taupin or Elton John, how'd you do it? How'd you guys work together? Bernie Taupin would write something, give it to Elton, and Elton said, I would think of myself being in a movie, and I would close my eyes and think of this whole dramatic scene based upon these words in this movie, and he'd write his melody like that.
Wow. Very,
very unique. So it's fascinating to hear how that would happen. And you can't help but to be influenced from your past. He was a piano player, he got lessons in piano, and then influenced by, his past, positives and negatives, which made him who he is. It's what makes everybody who they are today,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's really, so collaboration. Definitely, it's important.
I definitely suggest you look at, and there's a lot of free streams out there, like even Tubi, that they have this endless list of great videos on the birth of music, you know, like I never knew myself, Washington, you know, DC was the birthplace for a lot of grooves and rap and R&B and big place. LA, even though I was in the scene in New York, in LA, big punk movement, you know what I mean, a certain genre. It's fascinating. It's just in the States, if you understand the history of music, you can really get a lot of ideas as to how things turned out the way they did, you know. It's quite fascinating. Yeah.
Interesting. Hey, if you got value from this video, feel free to drop a like. If you're looking for a proven step-by-step process for consistently producing pro quality music from home, then just grab my free rapid song finishing checklist in the description below. Also, if you're just looking for more tips and tutorials on how to produce pro level music from home, then just check out my playlist or video on the screen right now. All right, have an awesome day and keep creating.